Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name's Jarvis, and if you're like me, you're wanting to start seeds. It's near the end of January and it's time to think about getting your garden seeds ready for next spring. And if you don't have a lot of room inside, you're looking outside and thinking, can I sow anything outside in this weather? And the answer is yes. So stay with me and I will show you 6 ways to sow seeds outside in the wintertime. Hello, we're back in the studio now, getting ready to fill the winter sowing methods. And I've been doing this for about the last 3 years. And some of the methods have worked out really well for me, and some of them haven't. So I'm just going to do them all and let you decide which ones work for you and which ones don't. A lot depends on the weather, your conditions, how much sun you get, how much shade you get, how much snow you get, how much rain. And so there's a lot of things that go into this. So what exactly is winter sowing? One thing is where you mimic nature. In nature, the seeds, the flowers produce, and the vegetables produce seeds in the fall, and the seeds fall out, and then over the winter, they freeze and thaw, and that breaks down the outer coating around the seed, and then come spring, when the conditions are right, they germinate. And this doesn't work with all seeds, but most of them. And what we're just doing is mimicking that and adding a little bit of protection on the more tender seeds, and to help them warm up faster, and also not to be eaten by the birds or by the little animals that are looking for food in the wintertime. What are the pros and cons of this method? One of the good things about it is that you can plant the seeds whenever you have time. You don't have to do any care for them in the winter. They're already hardy and they're already hardened off in the spring, so all you have to do is, if you do the methods where you have to transplant them, you just pick up the seeds and transplant them. You don't have to harden them off. The cons is, if you don't have enough moisture, you'll have to go out there and water them. In the spring, when they start to germinate, you'll have to start regulating their temperature, either by putting covers over them or taking covers off of them. So there's a little work there. Another pro is that you don't have them all in your house. You don't have to have grow lights. You don't have to have heating mats. You don't have to have a growing station. And you won't have seed trays everywhere that you're walking through as if you're a hoarder. So that's the pros and cons of it. Which seeds can you plant? You can plant quite a few. Anything, look on your package, anything that's self-seeding, cold winter hardy. It says to plant early in the fall or plant early in the spring. Perennial seeds, cold weather veggies, and cold weather flowers, annual hardy flowers, almost all your herbs, those can be planted. And just a list of some of them would be your flowers. You could put poppies, black-eyed Susans, butterfly weeds, coneflowers, cosmos, foxgloves, hollyhocks, petunias, zinnias and marigolds and impatiens, snapdragons, sunflowers, and morning glories. And the vegetables, you can do the beets, the broccoli, the cabbage, the Swiss chard, the carrots, the kale, the radishes, spinach, Brussels sprouts, rocket. Gotta go to my next page. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, collard greens, leeks, lettuces, and herbs are chives, Sorrento, dill, lavender, mustard, oregano, parsnip, peppermint, sage. All those can be planted with the winter sowing method. When can you plant in the winter? Anytime I'm part of a greenhouse in December. Anytime from December on up until March. Anytime is a good time to start winter sowing. So it's never too late until it's too late. And that's when it's warm, sun is warm, the soil up, and you're ready to do your spring planting. So let's get to the different methods that you can use to winter sow. We got the one that almost everybody's familiar with, and that's the milk jug or the container. Now, most people think they have to use milk jugs, but actually, you can use the containers that cakes come in, that your takeout food comes in, as long as it's deep enough to hold soil and allow room for the plants to germinate. Now, what you need to do is clean it out good, put hose in the bottom and hose in the top. Now, the hose in the bottom are for drainage. The hose in the top are for the rain and the snow to get through so that it keeps the soil moist. You don't want it sopping wet, but you do want to be like your houseplants. You want it to stay moist. So the first thing you need to do is poke some hose in the bottom. You're going to make about 6 holes here in the bottom. And then we're going to make get my seeds wet. Don't want to get your seeds wet. And then make 6 holes in the top. And be careful when you do this so as you don't puncture yourself. Okay, after you get your hose made, okay, to this you add your pre-moistened soil. Now you can use regular potting soil for this, or you can use seed starting soil. This should be approximately 2 to 3 inches deep. Allow room for the plants to germinate and to grow a little. Follow your package directions as far as how deep to plant things. I am going to plant leeks. Leeks say to plant a 1/2 inch deep. And I'm just broadcasting them pretty close together because I will be separating these. And then top them off with however much soil it says to do. Like this is a 1/2 inch, so let's just put some more soil on top of them. Tap them down a little so that they get good contact with the soil. Put your top on. Label them with your label them so you know what they are, and put the date on them. And these are ready to go out into the outside. You might want to put some tape around the edge to hold this lid on so the wind doesn't blow it away. That's all it is to method number 1. Another method of sowing the seeds outside in the winter is to use the 10-20 trays. Those are those trays that you buy at the store, or like the Jiffy Tree trays that come with the little seed containers and everything, and you put the lid on and you sow your seeds. They're called seed starting kits. And you can use these. I prefer to use older ones because you're going to have to punch some holes. Or, if you're like me, at the end of the season, your big box stores have these different little trays that they just toss out, and they'll give them to you for free. So what I like to do is take my 10-20 tray, take these little trays that have hose in them, set that into your 10-20 tray. Therefore, I don't have to put any drainage hose into my tray. I can use it over and over again. And then I come in with those containers that they have with it, or other containers depending on what I'm using, what I'm sowing. Just put those inside. Have your seed mix pre-dampened, and I already got them in there. And then you can label what each one is. I prefer to use painter's tape and just put on the, usually I put it on the outside, but I can put it on here and label each individual one as to what I'm going to plant. And then you just plant your seeds. We're going to plant some few marigolds. You don't have to be careful, because you can always transplant, move them around, transplant them. Yeah. So you can multi-sow your marigolds. I'm also going to do some poppies. Poppies are a real small seed, so you can put a couple of those in also. And then I'm going to do some cosmos. And once you get those planted, you simply take the top, which you punch holes into, a couple of holes, and tape it shut, or you can use yarn, twine, or anything. Just tie it like a Christmas package and tie it, and that way it's easy to get into water. It's a lot easier than the tape to get into water. So this is another method that you can use to winter sow. You just take this out and put it into the garden, let it get all the weather, all the soil, all the rain and the snow and everything on top of it, and forget about it until spring. Unless you have a really dry time, then you have to come out and check for water. And you may have to drain the bottom occasionally. But that's all it is to this method. Very simple. Now here's another method that I like, because like sowing in ground, either with or without the top protection, and this method, I don't have to transplant anything. What I'm doing here is I'm going to sow some carrots directly into the bucket here that they're going to stay in. They're not going to come out of this bucket. This is where they're going to live in and grow, mature, the whole bit, just like those over there. Just sprinkle them. Don't get them too thick, because you don't want to have to thin. Cover them the recommended amount. Your soil should be moist. Your bucket should have hose in the bottom. And then you simply put a plastic dome over the top, and this dome has hose in it so the water and the rain can come through. And you carry that, you put a brick on top of that to hold it in place, and you carry it outside and leave it stay set. Another method is to work your soil. Add your seeds. Sprinkle your seeds in here. Cover them up as the package says. And then put a plastic container over the top of them. Now this acts as a mini greenhouse. It has hose in the top to allow the water and the rain and stuff to get through it. And what you'll have to do is anchor this down with the rock so it doesn't blow away. But you've created a mini greenhouse in your garden beds. If your ground is not completely frozen and you can still work it a little bit, you can just simply work the ground a little, sprinkle your seeds in. You want to make them rather thick, and then just cover them up with the snow and leave them unprotected throughout the winter. This works well with seeds that self-sow and are winter hardy. So we got our marigolds planted in here. Put your seeds in, cover them with dirt, and leave them in the greenhouse. If you don't have a greenhouse, again, you can put them into a small hoop house. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a greenhouse, or you have a hoop house, a small hoop house, or just a little mini covering, you can sow the seeds directly in the bed. Now, I sowed these back in December of 2021. And I just did it in December, beginning of December. And it's now the end of January. And this is the growth that I have on the spinach and the lettuce, broccoli, Rob. The rocket, I didn't have any luck with that rocket package. That whole package never did come up. And my black-seeded Simpsons did not come up very well either. But the lettuce did really well, and the spinach did really well. So you can sow directly in the beds also. Now, let me cover these back up because our temperature has been dropping down into the single-digit numbers the last couple of nights. So I'm adding the fleece protection, the frost protection, just to be on the safe side. So before we carry these outside, let's review all the methods that we've learned. We've got the milk jug or the container method. We've got the 10-20 tray method. We have the bucket method. We have the in-ground with protection method. We have the in-ground without protection method. We have the greenhouse method, or if you don't have a greenhouse, the little hoops, mini greenhouses that you can make with the PVC pipe and the plastic. So let's go out and finish putting these outside. And all right, those are 6 different ways to winter sow, and I hope you've learned something. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, please. Also share it with your friends, especially if you have any gardening friends that are itching to get outside and want to try this method. It works for some people and it doesn't work for others. And some of the methods work and for some people, and some of the methods don't. It depends a lot on the weather and how much care you put into them afterwards, because you can forget about them right now, but come spring, you have to start watching them. And once they germinate, you have to regulate the temperature. Like in the greenhouse, I have to put the frost cover over them when it's cold because they're still young. So you do have a little bit of work, but it doesn't take up any room inside your house. You don't have to have grow lights. You don't have to have heating mats. You don't have to have any of that stuff. So if you have tried this, give me a comment below saying whether it worked for you and which method you liked best. If you tried all the methods. In the past, I've only tried the one method, which I did not like too well. And now that I've put the hoop houses up and the mini greenhouses up, I find that I'm getting a lot more better results than I did before. So it works for different people, different climates and things. So just find out what works for you. Experiment, that's part of gardening. And remember to dream big and follow that dream. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.